go faster.
Hello my friends, and welcome to episode 3 of this look at all of the Wizards of the Coast Pokemon TCG sets. And okay, I think I need to clarify something here because I don't think I did a great job properly conveying what I'm doing with my card rankings. In my first video on the base set, I got a lot of flack for stating that I didn't think Chansey was one of the better cards. I didn't think much of it, just differing opinions, but then, oh my god, I opened the proverbial floodgates in my jungle video. In that video, I ranked all of the types and rarities as I do, and I simply ranked Wigglytuff at the bottom for colorless rares. I can't even tell you how many comments I got hating on this decision. Wigglytuff was apparently the star card of the set back at release and in tournaments, mostly because of its Do the Wave attack. Now, I tried to make it clear that I am basing these rankings on my own personal experience with these cards, which is pretty much when I was 13 and then in the last couple years with this channel. I mean, I made an entire video where I used only one Wigglytuff and 4 Execute. That is 100% not the way Wigglytuff is supposed to be played, and I am aware of this. Is Jungle Wigglytuff one of the best in the set? In the right deck, absolutely yes. Do the Wave is only good if your deck relies on getting as many Pokemon onto your bench as fast as possible. If that's the deck strategy, Wigglytuff is unmatched among the jungle cards. But my ranking was simply based on how it would play in a standard no strategy, no theme deck. If you base a deck strategy around one card idea, then that card is going to be the best for it. Base Porygon is excellent for a stalling deck, for instance. In a regular deck with only a handful of Pokemon, Jungle Wigglytuff is not that great, and I tried to view it with that lens, but that's on me for not making that clear. I think Kangaskhan works better than Wigglytuff in a standard deck. With that said, I will certainly take responsibility for not relaying this well enough, and that perhaps I shouldn't be doing rankings at all because I don't care about building the best decks possible. Also, I will admit that me even bringing up the Haymaker deck in those videos does sort of make me look a little hypocritical, as I'm trying to view these cards in any standard deck, so I will say my bad on that one. So I decided I will keep making my own rankings, but just know that I will be having card rankings that you will disagree with, and that's okay. So rather than referring to them as the ones I think are the best, I'll try to refer to them as my personal favorites or preferences. But the main focus of these videos is still to simply look at all of the cards in a set, reminisce, wax nostalgia, and have fun. That's really all I wanted my channel to be. So with that off my chest, let's examine the third set. Check out the base set and jungle videos first if you want the entire saga. So after the release of Base Set and Jungle, there were still plenty of Pokemon of the original 151 that needed their debuts. Between the two, there were 114 different Pokemon with a couple added on varieties like with Pikachu and Electrode. So really, this next set, Fossil, was also meant to close the chapter on finally bringing the rest of the Pokemon into card form, kind of making these first 3 sets sort of a trilogy. The Fossil set was released in Japan on June 21st, 1997, and then the English set found its release on October 10th, 1999, only about a week before the North American release of Pokemon Yellow. Fossil is actually very similar to Jungle in a few ways. Both have 48 cards in the Japanese set, and Fossil has 62 in English compared to Jungle's 64. Both have 2 theme decks, and both have a couple returning variants as well as debuts. But while Jungle very much focused on the grass type, Fossil is a little more balanced, but not completely. Water is actually the dominant type here, and Colorless and Fire are the least. The blurb states, "Can you dig up all the fossil cards? 2 million years ago, the first known Pokemon walked the earth. Scientists thought they were extinct like the dinosaurs because only fossils had been found. Until now. A remote island has been discovered in the South Seas, an island where the Pokemon fossils have come to life." Well, this is better than the Jungle one, where I didn't think it really said much of anything. At least with this, you know you'll be getting debuts of the 5 fossil Pokemon and some classic lore about what happened 2 million years ago. That's right, the Pokemon franchise existed even back then. But one interesting thing here is that in the Japanese set, also known as Mystery of the Fossils, Mew was included as one of the psychic rares, but this was not the case with the English release. Mew wouldn't see its card debut in English until early 2000 with the Black Star promo release from the Pokemon League. But the Fossil set contains 2 colorless Pokemon, 8 fighting, 2 fire, 7 grass, 3 lightning, 6 psychic, at least in the English set, and 14 water. Also 5 new trainer cards. It also finally completes a few incomplete evolution lines from all the way back in the base set, like Weezing, Gengar, Hypno, Sandslash, and Dragonite. The Japanese booster packs are pretty cool, featuring Aerodactyl, Zapdos, Kabutops, Slowpoke, Omanite, Kabuto, Grimer, and Tentacruel with Cinnabar Volcano in the back. The English boosters kept the trend of 3 featured Pokemon of Lapras, Aerodactyl, and Zapdos. I also find these choices interesting because only one is an actual fossil Pokemon and the other is a new variant of the base set Zapdos. But I'll never forget that ripped paper bag look seeing these available in stores. My friends and I were all in on collecting when Fossil was released. And just like with before, first edition cards return and the holo and non-holo versions of each of the set's rares. So, without further ado, let's go through card by card, type by type, rarity by rarity, and rank them based on my own personal thoughts, as if they were thrown into any average deck. Yeah, Colorless actually takes a huge backseat here, as there are only 2 rares, no commons or uncommons. All we have here are Ditto and Dragonite, and these two are weirdly difficult to compare. I think in a standard deck, I gotta think Ditto has more upside because, it can be any Pokemon, including Dragonite. 50 HP, weakness to fighting, resist psychic, 1 retreat cost, but really none of this will even matter most of the time because of its Pokemon power of Transform. If Ditto is active, it is an exact copy of the defending Pokemon. It copies type, HP, weakness, resistance, retreat cost, and the energies needed to use whatever moves it's copying can be any energy. Also, Ditto can't evolve unless the defending Pokemon does, and Ditto always has this Pokemon power. If it has a status condition, it goes back to Ditto's normal stuff. Yeah, there's a lot to it and a lot to keep track of, but that's pretty true to what Ditto is. It can be anything and could be a lot of fun to use. Also, it's one of only 2 original cards along with Base Electrode not in the TCG Game Boy game because of its complicated transform power for in-game coding. Therefore, I haven't actually played with this card since I was 13, so speaking from personal experience here is almost non-existent. Then we have Dragonite, finally completing the evolution line from base set Dratini and Dragonair. And Dragonite is certainly no slouch. 100 HP, no weakness, resist fighting, 1 retreat cost. All of that is excellent. It also has the Pokemon power of Step In, where it overrides your active Pokemon's retreat cost if Dragonite is on your bench and becomes active. Pretty cool bonus. However, its only move is Coin Flip reliant, albeit very strong. For 4 colorless, Slam does 40 damage for each heads on 2 flips. It's a bit costly and could end up doing no damage, but best case, it's doing 80 with like 2 double colorless energies. Dragonite really has a lot of great things going for it though, and I think it's still an excellent fossil card if you're able to get Dratini and Dragonair out first. For fighting, there are actually multiples of each rarity here. The 2 commons are Geodude and Kabuto. I personally don't think either are great, but I guess I'll go with Geodude as the better of the 2. 50 HP, weakness to grass, 1 retreat cost, and it has the legendary Stone Barrage that I just love so much. For 1 fighting and 1 colorless, it does 10 damage for each heads until you get a tails. As a kid, I thought this was so powerful. You could get infinite heads flips. Geodude can single-handedly knock out any Pokemon in the entire game in 1 turn. This is the best Pokemon ever. And, yeah, in theory, these are all true, but with a 50-50 shot of getting a tails on every flip, the odds are very high that 0 or 10 will be the outcome. Yeah, Stone Barrage sucks to rely on, but hey, the potential is always there that it wipes out any Pokemon in 1 turn. I certainly have seen 70 or 80 damage turns on the Game Boy game. Kabuto, however, is now the first fossil one we'll be talking about. I guess I gotta mention one of the trainer cards here because you can't even use Kabuto until you have that first. Mysterious Fossil is just like the Pokédoll from the base set. It counts as a Pokemon, has 10 HP, and does nothing else. But it is needed in order to evolve it into either Kabuto, Omanite, or Aerodactyl. So once that happens, Kabuto has a lowly 30 HP, weakness to grass, and a 1 retreat cost. It has the Pokemon power of Kabuto Armor, which is whenever Kabuto is dealt damage, even self-damage, that damage is halved, rounded down. But with only 30 HP, this can only help for so long. Definitely cool against 10 damaging moves though. And its only attack is the 10 damage dealing move of Scratch for 1 Colorless. Yeah, Kabuto is pretty much there to wait for Kabutops, nothing really flashy about it. Then we have 3 uncommons, Sandslash, Graveler, and Golem. And in a surprise twist, I'm actually going with Sandslash as my favorite here. Yeah, my boy. And in my Sandshrew Sandslash only challenges, I thought this card was very frustrating to use. But I still like it more than the others. 70 HP, weakness to grass, resists lightning, only a 1 retreat cost. For 2 colorless, Slash does 20, so it's a cheap any energy move, and then Fury Swipes for 2 fighting does 20 for each heads on 3 flips. So you can kind of take the gamble there, a set 20 or a chance of 0, 20, 40, or 60. I just think it's the safer bet, and you only need a Sandshrew out to use it. And the next one I'm honestly kind of torn on, but I think I gotta pick Golem second, although it's very close. It honestly has a lot of negatives to it though. 80 HP is high, but not really a lot for a 3rd stage. It has a weakness to grass and a huge 4 retreat cost, and for it to ever attack you need 4 energies, plus Geodude and Graveler already out. For 3 fighting and 1 colorless, Avalanche does a set 60, which is really nice, just expensive. Also, not the ice attack that enters the games later on. For 4 fighting, Self-Destruct isn't anything new. 100 damage, 20 to every benched mon. Golem is a lot with just about everything, but I put it above Graveler really for one reason. If you have the energies, there's really no reason not to evolve it into Golem if you can. But I do think Graveler is pretty decent and is quicker. It only has 60 HP and half the retreat cost of Golem with only 2. For 2 fighting, Harden prevents 30 or less damage on the next turn, only if the attack does a set 30 or less. For 2 fighting and 1 colorless, Rock Throw does a simple 40. I do kinda like Graveler more than Golem in some ways, but as I said, I think it should still be below it because there is a reason to evolve it. More HP, more damage. The rares here have some pretty interesting ones. Hitmonlee, Kabutops, and Aerodactyl. I simply have to go with Hitmonlee as the best though. All 3 of them have 60 HP, so that's a wash. But Hitmonlee is the only basic one here, and it's not half bad. Weakness to Psychic and only a 1 retreat cost. For 2 fighting, Stretch Kick does 20 damage to any of your opponent's benched Pokemon of your choosing, and if you know me, I love damaging benches. And for only 1 more fighting, High Jump Kick does a set 50. Very straightforward, but pretty decent. I think base Hitmonchan is still the better of the 2, but Hitmonlee can hold its own with more damage, and the option to hit benches. Next, I think I have to go with Kabutops. You do need both a Mysterious Fossil and Kabuto out first, but I like its moves. It also has a weakness to grass and only a 1 retreat cost. For 2 fighting, Sharp Sickle does a set 30. For 4 fighting, Absorb does 40 and then heals Kabutops for half of the damage dealt rounded up. It's costly, but damage dealing moves that heal are worth it. And in 3rd is Aerodactyl, but it definitely has its merits. It has a weakness to grass, resists fighting, which is pretty cool. 2 Aerodactyls can't even hit each other, and a 2 retreat cost. But its notable ability is its Pokemon power of Prehistoric Power. This puts a stop to any evolution cards being played unless Aerodactyl has a status condition. This can obviously help or hurt you depending on what else is in your deck, but if you are using an Aerodactyl, you would probably plan around that. And then another bonus is that Wing Attack does 30 for 3 of any energy, so that's something. Aerodactyl can go into a deck of any type as long as you also have Mysterious Fossils in it. Fire is another simple one with nothing to compare. There are no commons, and then Magmar is the only uncommon, acting as a new variant from the base set version, so I guess I'll compare those two. This Magmar has 70 HP, a weakness to water, and a 1 retreat cost. For 1 fire, Smokescreen does 10 and prevents damage done to Magmar on the next turn with a Tails Flip from your opponent. For 2 fire, Smog does 20 and poisons with a Heads Flip. Fossil Magmar is the weaker of the 2 damage-wise, but has more HP, a cheaper retreat cost, and the versatility of preventing damage and poisoning. Base Magmar's only edge is that Fire Punch and Flamethrower do way more damage. I do think I gotta pick Fossil Magmar as the better one though, as I think it has more pros. You only need 1 or 2 energies to attack, and then Smog could end up poisoning, which ultimately could be better than the base version's Fire Punch. They're good in different ways. And then we have the one rare here of a personal nemesis Pokemon, Moltres. I mostly hate the legendary one with Fire Giver from the GBC game though, so the hatred isn't as strong here. This Moltres has 70 HP, no weakness, resists fighting, and a 2 retreat cost. Yeah, even though water is absolutely super effective over Moltres in the main games, they had to give it a nice bonus here and omit that because it is a legendary bird. For 1 fire, Wildfire allows you to discard as many fire energies as you want on Moltres, and then your opponent discards that many cards from the top of their deck. This is really only worth it if their deck is getting low, or they used a Pokédex or something and put the better cards next. Otherwise, it's probably best to save up to use Dive Bomb, which is all sorts of risky. It costs 4 fire energies and does 80 damage, unless a Tails is flipped, in which nothing happens. Yeah, Moltres can't even deal any damage half of the time and takes a lot of energies to even attempt it. However, a successful 80 damage is nothing to sneeze at, and with one shot most Pokemon. If you're feeling the coin flip luck, Moltres is a decent one to throw into a fire deck. Next we have 3 grassy commons, Ekans, Zubat, and Grimer. I do want to go with Grimer as the best here. All 3 have a weakness to Psychic, and then Grimer has the most HP with 50. Also a 1 retreat cost. For 1 colorless, Nasty Goo does 10 and paralyzes with a heads flip. For 1 grass, Minimize reduces damage on the next turn by 20. The colorless energy for attacking is pretty nice though, and possibly paralyzing is always an annoying bonus over your opponent. Minimize being useful is pretty situational, but if you need to keep Grimer in for a while, all you need is 1 grass energy. Then I think I'll pick Zubat second because of the added resistance to fighting and no retreat cost. Zubat and Ekans both have 40 HP, but Zubat's moves are quite nice. Supersonic for 2 colorless confuses with a heads flip, and then Leech Life for 1 grass and 1 colorless does 10 and heals Zubat for the same damage dealt. I actually quite like Zubat for what it is here. Ekans is also kinda decent though. Spit Poison just poisons with a heads flip for a single grass, and then 1 grass and 1 colorless is needed to use Wrap, which does 20 and paralyzes with a heads flip. So of the 3, Ekans actually does the most damage with the potential to poison. The 3 uncommons are the evolved forms of Arbok, Golbat, and... wait, Wheezing? Oh yes, Base Coughing finally has its evolved form here, but these 3 are all second stage forms with 60 HP and are all weak to Psychic, so nothing to compare there. Golbat has no retreat cost, Wheezing has 1 and Arbok has 2. Also, Golbat resists fighting. So considering that and the moves, I gotta go with Golbat as the best, but just barely. Wing Attack does 30 for 3 colorless, giving some Aerodactyl vibes, and then Leech Life is just a stronger version of Zubat's. This time it costs 2 grass and 1 colorless, and deals and heals 20. So yeah, with Golbat's resistance and retreat cost perks and pretty solid moves, I think it's pretty decent. If you have an ample supply of grass energies, you get your pick of Wing Attack or Leech Life too. And then in second, I have Arbok, which I also really like, and that's because of the auto poison. But for 1 grass, Terror Strike does 10, and then with a heads flip, your opponent's active Pokemon switches out for a benched one of their choosing. For 2 grass and 1 colorless, Poison Fang does 20 and auto poisons, which is always sweet. A big positive for Arbok is that you only need 1 grass energy to do anything with either Ekans or Arbok. And then in third is Wheezing, and I'm just not as high on it as the others. For 2 grass, Smog does 20 and poisons with a heads flip, and then Self-Destruct is as it always is. 60 damage to both, 10 to everything else for 2 grass and 1 colorless. But this is a cheaper version of Self-Destruct with only 3 energies, so that's something. And our lone rare here is Muck. Muck has 70 HP, weakness to Psychic, and if you didn't notice, every grass Pokemon here is weak to Psychic since they're all poison types in the main game, and it has a 2 retreat cost. Its Pokemon power of Toxic Gas puts a stop to all other Pokemon powers unless Muck has a status condition. So like with Aerodactyl, they both put a stop to a gameplay mechanic. In the right deck, that's gotta be a rough combo for your opponent. For 3 grass, its only move is Sludge, dealing 30 and poisoning with a heads flip. Muck is pretty average for me in terms of rares. I personally think it's on par with the 3 uncommons here, but Toxic Gas does have the potential to be a game changer. On to Lightning, and we have no commons or uncommons. In fact, between the base set, jungle, and fossil, there are 0 Lightning uncommons. Food for thought. What we do have here are the 3 rares of Raichu, Magneton, and Zapdos, all Pokemon that are in the base set as well. So you know what we gotta do here, compare these 3 and compare them to their base counterparts. All 3 of them have an attack that costs 4 lightning energies too, but man, it's a tough call for me. I'm gonna make a total mad lad move here and take Magneton as the best. Surprising? Maybe. Of the 3, Magneton is the only one that doesn't need 4 energies to attack, and Sonic Boom for only 1 lightning and 1 colorless is the safest of the safe moves. It does 20 and bypasses any weakness or resistance, so take that, Rhyhorn. It also has 80 HP, a weakness to fighting, and a 2 retreat cost, and has its own self-destruct for 4 lightnings, dealing 100 to each and 20 to everything. And yeah, I do think Fossil Magneton is slightly better than the base set one. It has 20 more HP, and Sonic Boom is cheaper than Thunder Wave, although Thunder Wave is a little more powerful and can paralyze. But Sonic Boom is perfect if you're stuck against a fool resisting lightning. And then both have self-destruct, with the fossil version being stronger, but requiring 4 lightning instead of 2 and 2 of anything. They're both pretty similar though, so it's not like one is way better. In second, I just prefer Raichu over Zapdos. Crazy, I know. Raichu has more HP with 90, but is weak to fighting while Zapdos resists it. And both only have 1 move that costs 4 lightning. Giga Shock does 30, and then you choose 3 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and it does 10 to each of them. Yeah, that's awesome. But between the base set version and this, I think I gotta say the base set is better, just because it has another move option, and agility is pretty nice. And even though Thunder is self-damaging, it's dealing 60, just like the potential for Giga Shock, and the 4th energy needed for it is colorless. Giga Shock is more fun and can be more punishing, but base Raichu gives you more options faster with a harder hitting move. Close call though. And then in last is Zapdos, but I mean, it's still pretty awesome. No weakness, resist fighting, 2 retreat costs, just like the other legendary birds. And it's a basic mon. For 4 lightning, Thunderstorm is kind of a complicated one. It does 40 damage, and then for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon, you flip a coin. For each heads, that Pokemon takes 20 damage. For each tails, Zapdos takes 10 damage. I used both of these in my self-damaging challenge, and ultimately, I ended up favoring the base set one more than this one. I do love me some damage to bench Pokemon, but Thunderstorm ended up not being as reliable as I had hoped. There were a few times that it completely rocked, but no, I choose the base set one between the 2. So unlike with Jungle's Lone Mr. Mime, we actually get some new psychic ones here. However, there is only one common. Slowpoke has 50 HP, weak to psychic, 1 retreat cost. And interestingly enough, it's only a utility card, no attacking. For 1 colorless, Spacing Out is a self-heal of 10 with a heads flip. For 2 Psychic, Scavenge has you discard a Psychic energy to bring a trainer card from your discard pile back into your hand. So yeah, not really a whole lot to say about it. Slowpoke retrieves trainer cards and can self-heal. It's there for that, or to turn into Slowbro. Speaking of, there are 2 uncommons here, Slowbro and Ghastly. And yeah, I'm gonna pick Slowbro here of the 2. It has 60 HP and the same Psychic weakness and 1 retreat cost as Slowpoke. Slowbro has the Pokemon power of Strange Behavior, which I recently utilized in my self-damaging moves challenge. You can move as many damage counters as you want from your Pokemon to Slowbro as long as it doesn't knock Slowbro out, and if it doesn't have a status condition. Really not too bad if you need a quick heal and either don't care about Slowbro or can't use it. Sucks for Slowbro though. For 2 Psychic, Psyshock does 20 and paralyzes with a heads flip. So it's not super strong, but not a bad addition to his Psychic deck. Ghastly is now the new and improved version over the base set one. 50 HP, no weakness or retreat cost, and it resists fighting. For 1 Psychic, Lick does 10 and paralyzes with a heads flip. Very straightforward, nothing we haven't seen before. But energy conversion is a new idea. For 2 Psychic, you can bring 2 energy cards from your discard pile into your hand, and Ghastly takes 10 damage. I personally prefer this one over the base set one by quite a bit. Base Ghastly can only maybe cause sleep and has Destiny Bond, which can be very useful, but only under specific circumstances. I already talked about that one. Then this is where it varies depending on if you have the Japanese or English sets. Since I'm focusing on the English versions for these videos, I won't count Mew here in the rankings, but it is part of the Japanese fossil set, so I will bring it up. This Mew has 50 HP, weak to Psychic, 1 retreat cost. It has Psywave for 1 Psychic, which does 10 damage equal to the amount of energy cards on the defending Pokemon. Not bad at all, but I feel like at most it'll be doing 40 damage unless you're against Blastoise or Exeggutor or something. Even still, 40 damage for 1 energy is excellent. For 2 Psychic, Devolution Beam allows you to return the highest stage evolution card from either player to their hand, and that Pokemon no longer has a status condition. This is another one that's pretty situational. I believe it would really only be effective under 2 circumstances, but correct me if I'm missing something else. 1, unevolving a Pokemon would knock it out if it has more damage counters on it than the pre-evolved form does, and 2, Mew is paired with Aerodactyl, for example, which stops evolution cards from being played. A pretty nice combo if you can pull it off. Otherwise, Devolution Beam won't do all that much for you. They can just re-evolve it on the next turn under normal circumstances. I think it's even more rare for it to benefit you to use on your own Pokemon, but it's possible. Maybe you want to evolve a different one without damage counters on it, for instance. Yeah, I think Mew is an interesting one. But okay, there are 3 Psychic Rares in both versions, Haunter, Gengar, and Hypno, giving us not only 2 completed versions from the base set, but another Haunter version as well. I mean, I gotta pick Gengar as my favorite here, but I really do like all 3 of them. Gengar has 80 HP, no weakness, 1 retreat cost, resists fighting. And the main reason I have it at 1 is its Pokemon power. Curse allows you to rearrange 1 damage counter per turn on your opponent's Pokemon, even if it knocks one out. Yeah, I love that. And on top of that, Dark Mind does 30 for 3 Psychic, and then it does 10 to one of their benched ones. Ooh baby, this Gengar was made for me. One of my favorite ones in the set. Then it's tough, but I think I gotta go with Hypno next. And why is that? It has the exact same Dark Mind attack. Same cost, same damage. It does have more HP than Gengar with 90, but it has a Psychic weakness and a 2 retreat cost and no resistance. All worse than Gengar. So then it's down to Gengar's Curse versus Hypno's Prophecy move. For 1 Psychic, Prophecy works like a mini Pokédex, but for either player. You can rearrange the top 3 cards of either deck in any way. This could cause some problems for your opponent or help yourself out while you power up for Dark Mind. But I still prefer Gengar's Curse between the 2. What Hypno does have going for it though is the need for only Drowsy to be out as opposed to both Ghastly and Haunter. Speaking of that makes Haunter 3rd, but I really do like it a lot. It only has 50 HP, so the same as Fossil Ghastly, but its Pokemon power of Transparency is sweet. It makes any attack done to Haunter only work 50% of the time unless it has a status condition. Very awesome. Then its move of Nightmare is pretty nice too. For 1 Psychic and 1 Colorless, it does 10 and causes auto sleep. And on top of that, it has the ghost bonus of no weakness, resist fighting, no retreat cost. I also like this Haunter way more than the base set one. They upgraded the ghost here quite a bit in my opinion. But the brunt of the fossil set is the water type with a whopping 14. With all of the tans and browns on the packaging and the name Fossil making you think of the rock type, you would think fighting would be the focus of the set, but nope, it's water. And we have 6 water commons here: Psyduck, Tentacool, Shelder, Krabby, Horsey, and Omanite. All are weak to lightning except for Omanite, who is weak to grass, just to not mention that every time. I think my personal favorite one here is Psyduck. 50 HP, and it has the unique option of a Psychic or Water move, bringing back elements of Jungle Execute. For 1 Psychic, Headache prevents your opponent from playing trainer cards on the next turn. For 1 Water, Fury Swipes does 10 for each heads on 3 flips. I never loved coin flip attacks, but the possibility of 30 damage for 1 Water energy is really nice. I like Psyduck's versatility. In second, I want to pick Horsey. 40 HP with no retreat cost, and it has Smokescreen for only 1 water energy, which does 10 and makes your opponent's next attack only have 50% accuracy. Horsey is super annoying to be against, so I want to put it pretty high. Very similar card to base Sandshrew. In third, I want to go with Omanite. It's technically a second stage card with the need for a mysterious fossil first, but its Pokemon power is a fun one. Clairvoyance has your opponent play with their hand face up. Take that, secret strategies. Then it has 40 HP and the standard water gun move that works the same every time, just a little weaker here. 10 damage for 1 water and then 10 more for each extra water energy on Omanite, no more than 20 damage more. I much prefer Omanite to Kabuto, although I find it interesting that Omanite is water and Kabuto is fighting, even though they have the exact same typing. It's gotta be because Kabuto is brown, Omanite is blue though. Color coordination. In fourth, I'm going with Krabby. 50 HP, but the highest retreat cost of the 6 with 2. And it has 2 moves. Call for Family is a return from the jungle set, allowing you to search your deck for another Krabby to put on your bench for only a single water energy. Easy to load up on some crab boys. For 1 water and 1 colorless, Iron Grip does a simple 20. Very straightforward, but Krabby is all about building a bench. So that leaves us with the 2 30 HP ones, and I personally prefer Tentacool to Shelter. It has no retreat cost and a useful Pokemon power. Cowardice allows you to return Tentacool to your hand at any point unless it has a status condition. If done right, your opponent can never get a prize card for Tentacool if you know it's about to get knocked out. But its move of Acid is just a 10 damage move for a single water. I do like Tentacool though, as it can keep disappearing and reappearing throughout the match. And in last is Shelter, which isn't terrible, but it technically can't deal any damage itself. It has 30 HP and a 1 retreat cost, and for 1 water energy, you choose either move option. Supersonic, causing confusion with a heads flip, or Hide and Shell, which prevents all damage done to Shelter on the next turn with a heads flip. So ideally, you want to confuse the Pokemon and then continue to prevent damage. With the right coin flip luck, Shelter can actually last for quite a while, even with only 30 HP. But because it's so low, your luck will probably run out sooner than later. Then we have 6 uncommons, and well, they're all the evolved forms of the commons. So that's easy. Golduck, Tentacruel, Cloyster, Kingler, Seadra, and Omastar. And likewise, all of them are weak to lightning and Omastar weak to grass. A tough one here, but I'm gonna go with Golduck as my favorite. It has the most HP of all of them with 70, tied with Omastar, and also like with Psyduck, it utilizes both Psychic and Water energies. Also keeping in mind that neither of them are the Psychic type, but that's for another video. Psyshock for 1 Psychic does 10 and paralyzes with a heads flip. Simple and effective. But then Golduck has Hyper Beam for 2 water and 1 colorless that does 20 damage, and then your opponent also loses an energy on their Pokemon. If they are struggling with energies at all, Golduck is gonna stifle most strategies along with its decent HP. I like it. And in second, I'm actually going to pick Tentacruel, one that I didn't like much at first. 60 HP and no retreat cost, making both Tentas free to retreat. For 1 water, it has Supersonic that might cause confusion, and then for 2 water, Jellyfish Sting does 10 and auto poisons. Tentacruel can cause some serious problems real quick for cheap, and can also retreat with ease. Then it gets pretty tough for me. I think I'll go with Omastar next, although it's kinda similar to Cloyster, just more reliable. It's tied with the most HP of these with 70, and has 2 moves, both needing 2 energies. Water Gun is back, making it one of the most common moves of these original sets. 1 water and 1 colorless to do 20, plus 10 more for each additional water energy on Omastar up to 2 more. But if you want to take the gamble route, for 2 water, Spike Cannon does 30 damage for each heads on 2 flips. So Omastar is good for options, set damage or chancing it for 60. Next I'm going to pick Kingler, 60 HP but easily has the highest retreat cost of these with 3. But its moves are decent. For 1 water, Flail does 10 damage equal to the damage counters on Kingler, so up to 50 damage for only 1 energy. That's sweet, but useless with a healthy Kingler. And then it has Crab Hammer, a simple 40 damage move for 2 water and 1 colorless. All Kingler does is deal damage, but I kinda like the moves. Next is Seadra, which is a pretty good card, but there's just something boring about it to me. I don't know why. It has Water Gun, which I just talked about, exactly the same as Omastar's, and then it has Agility for 1 water and 2 colorless to deal 20 and potentially prevent damage to Seadra on the next turn. Yeah, it's okay. And in last is Cloyster, the lesser Omastar. It only has 50 HP, which is kinda surprising, and a 2 retreat cost. But it's one of those cards with both moves having the same cost. Your options are Clamp or Spike Cannon for 2 water. Spike Cannon is the exact same move I just talked about, but Clamp is possibly even more of a gamble. It does 30 damage and paralyzes with a heads flip, but the downside is a tails flip negates the damage too. So Cloyster not only relies on coin flips to do anything, but it also has low health and could do 0 damage from either move. What it has going for it though is the need for only Shelter Out and 2 total water energies for a pretty low cost for an evolved form. Which leaves us with the final 2 Pokemon, the 2 water rares, Lapras and Articuno. And both are very different from each other, yet I really like both of them. Lapras is the safer and cheaper bet, and Articuno is the more flashy and expensive one. I've used both many times in both of my Ice Challenge videos, so I think Articuno is the preferred one of the 2. It's a legendary bird, so it has no weakness, resists fighting, and has 70 HP and a 2 retreat cost. For 3 water, Freeze Dry does 30 and paralyzes with a heads flip. Then for 1 more water, its star move is Blizzard, which does 50, and then with a heads flip, every one of your opponent's Pokemon takes 10 damage. However, with Tails, all of yours do. Articuno takes some powering up, but it's a lot of fun to use. There are many cases where Freeze Dry is the better move to use over Blizzard, even if you have the energies. On the flip side, Lapras is also quite good. 80 HP, 2 retreat cost, weakness to lightning. But you only technically need 2 water energies to use either move. I won't bother explaining Water Gun again, except this one takes 1 water energy at base for 10 damage. But for 2 water, Confuse Ray does 10 and confuses with a heads flip. So Lapras excels when you succeed with Confuse Ray once and then stick to using Water Gun. And it's tanky enough with 80 HP to last a bit longer, all while being a basic mon. I really like both of these. So that does it for all of the fossil Pokemon, and that leaves the trainer cards. Unlike Jungle only having 1, Fossil adds 5 to the repertoire. 4 commons and 1 uncommon. The 4 commons here are Energy Search, Gambler, Mysterious Fossil, and Recycle. And to be honest, I don't really want to rank these. Not because I'm lazy, but just because these mainly work or don't work depending on your deck strategy. Energy Search is useless in a monotype deck for instance, so I'll just briefly explain them. Energy Search has you search your deck for any basic energy card to go into your hand. Super helpful in multi-type decks as you're basically exchanging this for whatever energy you need at the time. Kinda surprising that it took to the 3rd set for this basic concept to enter the game. Gambler is a cool one. It's like a risky Professor Oak. You shuffle your hand into your deck rather than discard it, and then you draw 8 cards with a heads flip or only 1 with a tails flip. I think Oak is still way better, but this does have the potential of getting you even more cards, and you don't lose the ones you currently have to the discard pile. Mysterious Fossil I already talked about, and then Recycle has you put a card from your discard pile on the top of your deck, but only with a heads flip. Another super situational one, most likely useful in the later game. And the lone uncommon here is our old Lavender Town pal, Mr. Fuji himself. This kindly old man usually helps orphaned or abandoned Pokemon, but here in this card game, you shuffle a Pokemon and all cards attached to it on your bench back into your deck. Yet another very situational one, but if that mighty Zapdos on your bench is about to go beak first into the ground from some unsuspecting bench damaging move, Mr. Fuji will nurse it back to life and back into your deck. And just like with Jungle, we get 2 new theme decks here. I kinda complained last time that they used way too many base set cards for the Jungle theme decks, so let's see what they do here. We get Bodyguard and Lockdown, both containing a new sweet looking Aerodactyl coin. Bodyguard is grass and fighting based with Coughing on the cover, with the rare here being Hollow Muck. And in true theme deck fashion, we get a lot of incomplete evolutions here, as these are kinda meant to be a way to get certain cards to sort of give you a strategy idea, and then customize it as you collect by adding the rest of the evolutions. So our grass types here are Grimer and Muck, Zubat and Golbat, Bulbasaur and Coughing. Also weird to me that Coughing is the one who goes on the cover, even though there's no Wheezing, and the deck does come with Muck. Why not have Grimer or Muck on the cover? I don't know. But anyway, look at that. Almost all of them are actual fossil cards too. We get 2 random Bulbasaur thrown in, but hey, that's not so bad. And then the fighting types here are Geodude, Graveler, and Onix. That's not great, but like with grass, only Onix is the non-fossil one here. I'm not saying every card here needs to be fossil, but those jungle ones were pretty disappointing. The blurb says, "The Bodyguard deck is bursting with tough Pokemon who can take any punishment that comes their way." Which makes it sound like these are high HP ones or tanky ones. I don't know, maybe? Onix has a lot of HP. And our trainer cards here are Potion, Professor Oak, Pokemon Center, and Super Potion. Pretty standard healing and drawing cards. Then the next deck is Lockdown, which is fire and water based with Magmar on the cover, and the rare being a Hollow Lapras. And yeah, this is a weird one. The fire types here are Magmar, of course, and then Vulpix and Ponyta. There are more Vulpix and Ponyta than there are Magmar, but the only fire types in the set being Magmar and Moltres, it is kind of strange to pick these three here. The water types here are Lapras, Horsey and Seadra, and Krabby and Kingler. All fossil Pokemon too. So between both decks, they limited the base set ones pretty well. The blurb on this one says, "Shut down your opponent's offense with the Lockdown deck and attack at will." I can kinda see that one, I guess. Lapras and Vulpix can cause confusion, and then Horsey, Seadra, and Magmar can all prevent damage from Smokescreen and Agility. That might be what they mean by shutting down your opponent's offense. The trainer cards here are Gambler, Energy Surge, Bill, Switch, Potion, Super Potion, and Full Heal. Definitely more variety here than with Bodyguard. If I had to pick which deck I like more, I'd probably say this one. It does have some annoying cards for your opponent, and just seems like it would be more fun. So I think my favorite cards to use game-wise would be Gengar, Raichu, and Articuno. All very fun cards to pull off. And I of course have a soft spot for Sandslash. As far as the art goes, I honestly don't love a lot of them, and that's too bad. A lot of the art is just the standard pose like Haunter and Hitmonlee, and while there's nothing wrong with that, they don't stand out as much. I actually think Omanite might be my favorite. It has an actual background and I like the shading on it. Tentacool is another one that's in a pretty sweet action pose. Dragonite is very colorful, but Dragonite itself looks a little meh to me. And that takes us to the top 10 most valuable cards in the set, ranked on TCG Player by standard first edition market price as of October 2023. Number 10, Hollow Haunter at about 62.10. Number 9, Hollow Ditto at about 62.65. Number 8, Hollow Aerodactyl at about 63.55. Number 7, Hollow Raichu at about 77.40. Number 6, Hollow Lapras at about 85.81. Number 5, Hollow Zapdos at about $100.70, making the top 5 all in triple digits. Number 4, Hollow Moltres at about $111.78. Number 3, Hollow Articuno at about $113.55. Number 2, Hollow Gengar at a mighty $178.27. But number 1 at an even bigger leap, Hollow Dragonite at about $258.45. Honestly, the top 5 aren't surprises to me at all. All 3 legendary birds and the popular Gengar and Dragonite. I probably would have guessed Gengar below the birds, but nope. And then the least valuable Pokemon in the set, Tentacool at about 77 cents. Technically the lowest card is Recycle, but I wanted to mention the Pokemon themselves. And that pretty much covers the Fossil set. This set does mean a lot to me, as its release was during the height of collecting for my friends and I. When I first started, base set was extremely hard to find, but then once stores started getting more in stock, I feel like it was easier to find fossil packs than base or jungle. So the few times I was able to get some packs from my parents or returning bottles or whatever, fossil was my typical go-to. I don't like the set as much as jungle, but it certainly has a lot of nostalgia for me and completes the trilogy of the original 3. I do still love it, it just comes in third place for me. However, it does still have some great cards. And hey, we now have all the original 150 Pokemon present here. I already mentioned Mew, so in Japan at least, they got all 151 here. This was also kind of the turning point for me in collecting these. I've probably mentioned this before, but my friends and I only kept buying Pokemon cards for a little longer until we discovered Magic the Gathering. At the time, my friends and I sort of viewed Magic as the next step in card gaming, as Pokemon was maybe seeming a little too geared towards children for our ages. We were going to be high schoolers soon, so maybe it was time to move on to the more advanced and adult-style gameplay of Magic. But this didn't happen just yet. I'm also kind of at a crossroads here for the next episode. See, the next set released was Base Set 2, which was an English-only re-release of certain cards from Base Set and Jungle. And I mean, I already covered these cards. So then, if I move on to the next set, which was Team Rocket, I also covered most of these too in my Dark Pokemon only video. But that really wasn't me covering the Team Rocket set as a whole. So what I'm going to do is combine the two sets into one video for next time. The base set 2 portion will be more so a look at what cards they chose to reprint here rather than go over all of the cards again, and then the next part will be focused more on the non-dark cards in the Team Rocket set. I did not plan on doing this series at the time of me making the dark video, so I had to kinda come up with something here. I'll certainly still mention the dark cards as they will play into my ranking and whatnot, but if you want more of a look at all of the early dark cards, check out that video. It's actually one of my most viewed videos, which is kinda cool, so hopefully you'll have a good time. In the meantime, be sure to take the Helix fossil, not the Dome fossil, because Omastar absolutely rules. Also, go watch Jurassic Park, that movie still holds up 30 years later. Immense thanks to my super cool Patreon people here, and if you want to join and be part of the TCG order, check out the link here and below. Also, my Bonfire store for shirts, and intotheam.com/Paraspectre for 10% off of your order on any of their awesome designs too. I'll see you all in part 4. Paraspectre will return.